Classic staple of the 80s, the Ninja Turtles. Once a gritty comic book series turned a children's cartoon to turn into a multi-million-dollar franchise now owned by a multi-million-dollar company. This story is about four fun-loving, pizza-eating shinobi reptiles have captured the hearts and minds of countless children throughout its long lifespan. Me? My beginnings start with the 2003 series on 4Kids, the same way I discovered Sonic, and it branched onto the 80s series, movies, and more. I love the Ninja Turtles.
So it's time for me to tackle a movie from my childhood. At the peak of the 2003 series' popularity, we got this little CGI blockbuster, TMNT.
TMNT was an animated film distributed by Warner Brothers and the Weinstein Company, and animated by Imagi. What's an Imagi? It's an Asian animation studio, and this was the company's biggest hit. Well, to be accurate, it's its only hit, period. The company shut down in 2010 after a couple bombs. That aside, these companies collaborated to bring the Ninja Turtles to the big screen in a new way. Gone were the days of rubber suits and vanilla ice. The Turtles are back in a full CGI adventure.
This movie is 11 years old now. I remember going to the premiere of this movie as a kid, so it holds some sentimental value to me. I wonder how it holds up. Let's cut to it.
So the movie begins with a Lawrence Fishburne narration.
4 turtles. 4 brothers. All that you know is at an end.
He basically explains the basis of the Ninja Turtles, their backstory, and how they already killed their archenemy, the Shredder.
Wait, so this movie doesn't even have the Shredder?
Surprise! There is no Shredder. Now, before anyone complains that the main villain of the franchise isn't even there...
What is this? Mega Man fully charged?
But there is an explanation. You see, while the different style and new name may fool you, this isn't a standalone movie. Turns out, a more accurate name for this film would instead be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4. Yup, this is actually a sequel to the original live-action films, just after a big time jump. You can even see in one of the film's final scenes, items related to the past movies. Shredder's helmet from Turtles 1, although how did they get that when it was crushed by a garbage truck? You have the broken canister from Secret of the Ooze, and even the Time Scepter from Turtles 3. That really tells you this is the same universe. Now, with this completely new audience from the 2003 show, such as myself, that being your target demographic compared to the 80s kids that grew up with the older movies, was it a good idea to pick up where the last movie left off? Keeping in mind that the last movie came out in 1993? Not really? You could argue that this movie is made for the older fans, but the newer fans can bypass the little Easter eggs just fine, so it's not a big issue. It's just something to put into question, since this does play into a bigger problem with the movie later. But without that audience context, this is a cool idea on its own, and the movie definitely builds on the time skip concept. Over the years, the Ninja Turtles don't exactly experience a time gap as big as this, or at least not often. So the idea of more grown-up turtles after vanquishing the Shredder and turning it into basically a Where Are They Now episode is pretty cool. But before we could look at the future, we must go to the past. And not just 80 past. Not just the feudal past in Turtles 3. No, we're going way back.
3,000 years back, actually. Okay, wasn't expecting this.
Time for a history lesson in Turtles lore, folks. 3,000 years ago, a warlord named Yaddle and his 4 generals sought out to conquer the world. In one of their great battles, that looks a lot like something out of God of War. I swear I feel like Kratos is gonna show up and lash out at someone. Yaddle opens up a portal to an alternate universe as a secret weapon, unleashing 13 monsters out into the world. Why 13?
Because it's a spooky number.
The unleashing of these monsters caused Yaddle to be cursed to live an immortal life while his brotherhood is turned into stone.
This is a cool idea, but does it really fit in this world?
Now I know Ninja Turtles as a franchise is all about interdimensional beings, warlords, and just about any concept that can sell a toy, so I'm not saying this doesn't work in the context of the series' image as a whole. If anything, it fits right in. But you need to contain a certain amount of consistency to your world, or else it's going to feel alien compared to your past installments. This isn't saying you shouldn't expand on your mythos, and if this universe is still recent, you are free to add some crazy stuff to build on its identity. But since you're in the Turtles live-action movie universe technically, you need to abide to the same rules, and I don't think TMNT is. The most supernatural the movies get, aside from the whole mutant turtle thing, is 3, introducing magic time-traveling scepters. That was about it though. Everything else was still relatively grounded. No alternate dimensions, immortal warlords, or any of those out-of-place factors. And no, the scientist from Turtles 2 being an Utrom doesn't count since that idea was cut from the movie and therefore not canon. The old movie Turtles universe outside from the time travel plot is simply about a battle between 4 mutant turtles and a street gang known as the Foot. It's like if in Star Wars, the next movie established that Batman always existed in this universe. Would be pretty cool to see, but you can see that it doesn't make sense and breaks the immersion of the world. Watch.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
See what I mean?
So now we cut to present day, in a South American village being threatened by some thugs. However, they chose the wrong place to terrorize, as a being known as the Ghost of the Jungle attacks them and delivers the village's belongings back. With those jerks taken out, one of the villagers tell April O'Neil, an old friend of the Turtles, where they last saw the ghost. Last time we saw her, she was a reporter. Now, she's a full-on adventurer looking for specific artifacts for someone who hired her. Yet these legends definitely made her think of a long-gone friend. Luckily, she found him. Or rather, he found her, as we're introduced to Leonardo.
It's a long way from the city to just drop in.
And now that we saw our first turtle clearly, let me talk about their designs. I love them.
The movie's visuals are great. Sure, texture-wise, they don't hold a candle to animated films nowadays, but the style, the fluidity, the atmosphere similar to the comics, it's top-notch. Makes me sad Imagi Studios closed down, because imagine what they could be capable of this day and age. The Turtles here have these sleeker, expressive, much slimmer design. They have a charm and an edge to them which makes them pretty appealing. It's one of those few Ninja Turtles designs where I don't have to suspend my disbelief to think that they can actually be ninjas. For many designs of the Turtles, something is always off. They're too big, or they're too pudgy, they're too roided up. It's hard to believe these guys are masters of stealth. But seeing the animation at play, the choreography, and how their bodies are nimble enough to perform tricks no Turtles film has ever portrayed, and hasn't since, you truly believe that these are Ninja Turtles. The only other designs that seem to nail that sort of quality are the 2012 Turtles and the Rise of the Ninja Turtles designs. Minus Raph. Back to the story, April is telling Leo what has happened with his brother since he left years ago to train and be a better leader. This is where we see the other Turtles and how they're handling themselves without their leader. Donatello's got himself a job as part of a tech support phone line, and not exactly doing a good job. Michelangelo's kept himself busy as a costume character for children's parties called Cowabunga Carl. As for Raphael, to everyone he's been going to his room, sleeping, and being an overall loner in the day. But at night, he takes on the role of the vigilante called the Night Watcher, which is pretty much Turtle Batman, an intimidating crime fighter on an awesome motorcycle with the coolest armor ever. Why don't we have more stuff with the Night Watcher? Why isn't there more Turtles continuities picking up on this plotline of Raph being a solo crime fighter who plays by his own rules? It's a great evolution of his character, and something only this movie provides, as far as I know. These depictions of the Turtles are so in character with who they should be. Leo is the overprotective leader who puts all the weight on everything on his shoulders. That's why he never came home. He wanted to be perfect. Mikey's as fun as ever, Donnie's the smart straight man and best turtle, come at me. And Raph, I already talked about. And the cherry on the sundae is the voice performances. The voices. Not only are these the ideal designs for the Turtles, but the casting of each of the four is pure perfection. Mikey Kelly as, well, Mikey, Mitchell Whitfield as Donnie, Nolan North as Raph especially. Like, goodness, that was a great choice. But the show stealer here is James Arnold Taylor as Leonardo. He perfectly captures every nuance of Leo's voice, both at which he's at his strongest and his weakest. James has played many characters in animation before, and I am in love with many of his roles. And this is another one of them. And it's a darn shame none of these actors got the recognition they deserve for their parts in this movie. The marketing goes for the bigger names, which makes sense to get people into theater. But still, they deserve so much more, and it saddens me that this movie never got a sequel just because of this. I'm not joking around here. I want to see more of these Turtles specifically. The life given to them thanks to the design, the animation, the writing, the acting, it's everything I want the Ninja Turtles to be. April eventually convinces Leo to return to New York, as she believes everyone needs their leader back home. Leo agrees, ditching April behind to probably climb up those vines.
Like a true hero.
Back in NYC, Mikey finds himself missing the good old days of fighting crime in the streets, inspired by the adventures of the Night Watcher, while Donnie disapproves of such. This causes an argument between Donnie and Raph. Sure, you can see this as mean-spirited, but I think it works. Since these brothers have been so disconnected thanks to years of separation, their close relationship becomes more and more distant each day. However, they never act too over the line. It's just like, well, brothers. I'm sure many people tease each other, argue, and sometimes try to flinch people with a physical threat. It's mean, but that's what families can do sometimes. And remember, Ninja Turtles at its core is always about family. It's about the struggles and benefits of being in a family, the highs and lows, and the writing's great chemistry with the Turtles perfectly conveys this throughout the film. And plus, Splinter's still here to calm things down and teach each turtle something to keep the family close enough from truly falling apart. I'm not gonna bash the late Mako's performance as Splinter. It's different, yes, but still conveys the wise father figure that Splinter is. And come on, who doesn't want to hear a rat with the voice of Aku?
Cowabunga Carl Party Services. Cowabunga, dude.
I would like to place an order for delivery. Aku.
Meanwhile, April returns for the cargo she was requested to receive, and she calls Casey Jones to help her with sending it to the client. Here we see that Casey has definitely seen better days. While he has hooked up with April, while she has become more active, the once dedicated vigilante is now lazing around in his apartment. He still goes off into the streets and fights crime, but you can tell he's not particularly good in most other areas. It's great to see how these characters have evolved over the years. It puts them in new setups, but something not particularly out of character. So April and Casey deliver their cargo to a man named Max Winters, the richest guy in the city. What is it that he wanted so bad? One of Yalto's generals, the leader, Agula. Winters has gathered all four of the generals, Serpiente, Gato, and Mono. I'm sorry if I butchered those names. Once April and Casey leave, Winters meets with his other associates, Karai and the Foot Clan.
We stumble upon another problem.
Karai is a character introduced in the 2003 Ninja Turtles series as the Shredder's daughter. In fact, she even becomes the Shredder at some point. However, this character doesn't exist in the live-action universe, and thus she comes from out of nowhere with no real establishment. The Foot Clan also seems to be professional adults, a far cry from its roots as an army of teenage runaways. Yet, it's definitely more accurate to how they are in the 2003 show. You seeing the problem here? The movie wants to be a continuation of the live-action movies from before, which is fine, but now it's using factors from a completely unrelated universe. The mystical premise, Karai, the Foot Clan, darker tone, is trying to connect itself to what was at the time the most recent incarnation of the franchise. This only confuses the kids who don't understand why the Turtles all of a sudden broke up, and it confuses the adults who question where all these new characters and feel is coming from. So Winters hired the Foot Clan to keep an eye out for the 13 monsters in the city, which he also wants.
Now, let's talk about these monsters.
You're telling me, for 3,000 years, nobody has ever reported or seen these monsters rampaging about until now? The police, the Turtles, April, none of them ever noticed. Especially since all of them are lurking in one of the most populated cities on the planet? That's dumb. That's absurdly dumb.
Sure, this is a movie about freakish reptiles who eat pizza and no ninjutsu for kids. I get it, but some aspects just can't be bypassed and they never address this.
Back to the Turtles. The Night Watcher and Casey cross paths, with Casey figuring out pretty easily that Raph is behind the metal mask.
Hey, wait a minute. How'd you know it was me?
Wasn't that hard, man. You know, you look like a big metal turtle.
The two bond and talk about Leo. Raph explains his dedication towards protecting New York and sees it unfair that he's not allowed to fight anymore without Leo to lead. This is why he took on the form of the Night Watcher. Raph is mad that Leo keeps calling the shots. Even if he's not around, his influence still dictates what his brothers should do. With Winters, he developed a device to awaken the generals from their frozen state, telling them that the stars that formed the portal which sent out the monsters are about to form again.
Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure this Winters guy is Yaddle.
And hey, Leo's back! He and Splinter have a talk about how the Turtles are forbidden to fight until they are united as a team once more. Raph stumbles upon this conversation as the two share a relatable, awkward reunion.
Hey.
Hey. Welcome home.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, I'm going to bed.
Just these little touches. It's so real and believable, man. Later, while on a training exercise, Raph and Leo get into an argument about the Night Watcher and who is truly in the right. But this is cut short as the Turtles have no choice but to run into a battle with one of the larger 13 monsters, which just so happen to fight the Foot. While the other Turtles fight the monster, Leo fights Karai. The two just so happen to know each other. Again, trying to be like the 2003 show in the wrong world. The Foot escape and the monster is captured by the Stone Generals, leaving a mess of the place. This doesn't take long for Splinter to find out though.
Boys!
On a side note, how can these big stone guys hit this monster away so fast the Turtles and the cops don't even see them? The argument the Turtle family has over what went down just so happens to only split up the family more. while more and more rejected Lilo and Stitch experiments proceed to be hunted down. But now, Winters has only 3 monsters to go after that brisk 2-minute montage that adds nothing to the plot.
Further proving my point that this 13 number serves no purpose other than sounding spooky.
Meanwhile, Raph and Casey set off together to take down a monster without his brothers. The two get a first glimpse at the Stone Generals taking down the beast, and get caught themselves, with Raph being hit by one of Gatoad's weapons before avoiding him. Casey and April call on the turtle to check on the injured Raph as he heals, while discussing what happened that night. Casey explains how Winters' statue ambushed them to April, while he analyzes Gatoad's weapon. This leads April to conclude that Winters is Yaddle.
Whoa, stop the presses, what a twist!
But yes, April concludes that Winters has spent his immortal life in regret, hoping to reunite with those he once saw as family, and he has finally achieved that goal. Amongst this, though, Leo and Raph get into another argument on whether it's right to go after Winters now, or to wait for Splinter's approval. This infuriates Raph, who quits the team and chooses to tackle the monster, and eventually Winters alone as the Night Watcher. As that happens, another family gets into an argument. Agula questions Winters' motivations, sending all the monsters back will lift the curses inflicted upon the generals and Winters. This means none of them will be immortal. Winters silences Agula before it could escalate, but this causes the general to have sincere doubts about his master, as he tells his fellow generals that the 13th monster mustn't be found. Donatello analyzes the myth of Yaddle and how that relates to Winters further. He realizes that once the stars align and the portal opens above Winter's tower, more and more monsters can be unleashed and take over the world.
And when the portal opens, we'll lose the city to monsters within hours. Within days, the country. And within weeks, the world.
Leo, however, is blinded by his own anger towards Raph to even focus on the mission at hand. Splinter tells Leo to find Raph, who agrees. The 12th monster, the Jersey Devil, is spotted in a diner. As the Night Watcher gets into a scuffle with it, it's captured by the generals in the end, due to Leonardo intervening with Raph. The two eventually get into a fight, with Leo knocking the helmet off of Raph, realizing that he was the Night Watcher the whole time. The two get into one more heated argument as they vent out their grievances to one another. What's great about this is that both have their points, and this, out of all their moments together, prove it best. They're not truly in the wrong, but they're not truly in the right either. Leo wants to bring the family together again, but his arrogance doesn't realize the importance of independence and how not everyone will fall in line no matter how good you can be. While Raph refuses to let anyone in, letting his anger and stubbornness get in the way of letting anyone reach out to him. Not even Casey as shown earlier.
What's funny is that I think this one moment hits harder than all of Civil War. I'm not kidding.
This is where the drama reaches its peak, and once again, James Arnold Taylor and Nolan North brought their A-game for this scene.
Hey, I was training to be a better leader, for you! Why do you hate me for that?
And whoever said I wanted to be led? I'm better off calling my own shots now, get used to it!
The two get into one last epic fight, with Leonardo being pinned down. Upon realizing the terrible things he's doing to someone who, in the end, is someone he loves, his brother, Raph chooses to run away. Yet this causes Leo to be kidnapped by the generals, who they intend to pretend that this is the final monster to disrupt the ritual, and Raph is too late to run back and get him.
Now, I want you to look at this scene where Raph tells Splinter what happened to Leo.
I was out and I did something happened and I did something really stupid, Master Splinter.
This one moment, is incredible. Just how Raph moves, how he talks, how he balances fear, anger, sadness, guilt, all in one. The direction on him is just perfectly natural, unnervingly natural. I can actually feel what he's feeling. The heartbreak, the self-doubt, and Splinter's consoling him like a father should. It's like a real family. I can't stress that enough. This movie perfectly depicts what the Ninja Turtles as a whole wants to convey. The importance of family, both the good and the bad, but why you need all of it to grow as a person. Why you need all of them to grow as a person.
But you must realize that while at times you may not be my favorite student, it does not mean that you are my least favorite son. You are strong, passionate, and loyal to a fault. These are the merits of a great leader as well.
Nothing's over-dramatized. Nothing's underplayed. It's as honest as Ninja Turtles is going to get, and it's actually beautiful. Splinter makes a decision to stop hiding and save Leo once and for all. Casey and April chip in, while Raph takes on the role of leader. He uses his good qualities, his dedication, his sense of justice, authority, all those aspects the movie brought up before, but depicted as flaws, now used for good.
That is great foreshadowing of what Raph will become in the end.
The team set out to Winter's Tower to stop the ritual in progress, with even the Foot eventually joining in upon realizing the catastrophic events they helped cause, all while trying to get the real 13th monster. Meanwhile, Winters realizes things aren't going as planned as Leo doesn't complete the ritual. Winters and Agula talk about their views on immortality. Winter sees it as a curse, while these stone generals see it as a blessing. None of them see eye to eye, but none of them have the moral insight to understand the other fully. It's a contrast to Leo and Raph, who deep down still loved each other. Winters and Agula never showed so much as brotherly love as of that of obligation, and this is what tears them apart when it would make the Turtles stronger. The team of heroes makes it to the tower and save Leo. Both him and Raph reconcile their relationship and realize how both need each other. Winters explains what he's doing is a big misunderstanding and that he wanted to end everything, but the generals are in his way. So the Turtles and Splinter buy time to get the 13th monster here, fighting the generals while holding back the incoming new monsters and sending them back.
Come to Daddy.
That is the coolest getup ever. I want a toy of that.
Eventually, Casey, April, and the Foot deliver the massive final monster to the portal.
Okay, seriously, 3,000 years. How has nobody seen this thing?
The monster is sent in with the generals as they perish, lifting the curse. This causes Winters to gratefully die.
Oh, gross. Somebody give me a hanky. Now he's in my mouth. Tastes awful.
Also, Karai tells the Turtles that more dangers await them in the future, specifically ones about enemies in the past returning. Don't you just love unfulfilled sequel bait? But in the end, the Turtles are united once more. Raph gives up his title of the Night Watcher, and the brothers go back to defending the city.
Oh, I love being a turtle.
And that was TMNT, and it's much better than I expected.
This movie has its glaring flaws. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes the animation can seem pretty dated, specifically with the humans. The movie has some dumb gaps in logic that can break some immersion to the plot. Donatello and Michelangelo are very insignificant to the overall flow of the story. One just spells out exposition, while the other provides levity but no development or arc beyond it. Most importantly, the film is very misguided. It doesn't know if it wants to be a sequel to the original 3 films, a continuation of the 2003 show, or a standalone entity. It's a jack of all trades, but a master of none. But these problems don't get in the way of what the movie nails. The designs, the fluidity, the motions, the music, it's beautiful. The score itself is my personal favorite of the entire Turtles franchise, actually. And I already sung my praises about the excellent casting of the Turtles. The best thing though? I can tell that the people behind this movie loves the Ninja Turtles and nailed down the message of family more than any of the films have ever did. Being in a family is hard sometimes. You disagree with each other, get in fights. It happens to each and every single one of us. But you need to learn and accept their differences, as that's what makes all of you stronger. And no matter what you face, that love you share between family is what makes you unstoppable. Sure, many movies, shows, and other media stress the importance of family too, but I argue Ninja Turtles is one of the best embodiments of this moral. How they handle it throughout its 30-year or so history is what inspires me to write content like it. Ninja Turtles conveys this message of family best because of its contrast, because of its absurdity, because it's about something as ridiculous as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Even with the over-the-top premises, wacky characters, insane threats, and how nuts it all is, that's just what makes the theme stronger. There's nothing too big, too different, or too crazy to stop the importance of family. That's how it should be in our lives. Sure, maybe we're not fighting the forces of evil, but in a way, we kinda are. Stress, anxieties, everyday bothersomes, sometimes it feels like too much for you. You feel like you can't take things on by yourself, and you shouldn't. Family will always be there. Even when you feel like you've done something to piss them off, or you even disappear to something like the jungle, it's always there, and can always be rekindled. That's what's amazing about not just TMNT the movie, but about Ninja Turtles as a whole.
Now, if you excuse me, I have a reward ceremony to attend.
Welcome to Shell Shock, ringing in your ears like the bells to L-Rock. It doesn't matter whether or not you sell lots, if you can find solace in the coldest cell block. This is Shell Shock, welcome to Shell Shock, ringing in your ears like the bells to L-Rock. It doesn't matter whether or not you sell lots, if you can find solace in the coldest cell block. This is Shell Shock, welcome to Shell Shock. I did it my way, sat back and let them live soft so they can die hard, yippee-ki-yay, we exist in circles. So the first way to push me is boxed out like Girl Scout cookies. This is not a test, we don't trust you, not a fan of men that rock uggles. I don't understand, can you blame me? I guess that's just the way my pops raised me. A penny for a thought, a nickel for a swift fist to the face.